Do, 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 do. Dun. This hangout on air is live. Thank you for joining us. My name
Woo!
is Tenk Kun. Tenkun. Kun. Yeah. Today with us we got Ace,
Sup?
Jessica.
Hello.
Jessica's being unfair. She's got a kotatsu. And Nick.
Yo.
Call outs to how do you say his name again? Edam Dog. I was hoping he would join us, have a new face with us, but he might join us next week. So drive safe.
Maybe.
Be careful out there. Sean, I sent you an invite. I don't know if you're.
Don't.
Hope you had fun in Japan. I know jet lag is probably hurting you, so you can't make it.
There's no manga cafe for him to crash in Chicago or near Chicago.
I don't know. But Nyanpasu to everyone. Nyanpasu. It came back. This season anime brought it back with the Emoto title. He called
They
it out.
did.
It was so awesome.
Another
I was so
Nordic
happy.
Cup, I believe, but I still hate that phrase.
So
You're
Nyanpasu is officially back.
Nyanpasu to me is what poi is to you.
I hate poi. Let's go ahead. Okay, so this is the fall season of 2017. It's a pretty good lineup, at least from the start. Better than summer for me, myself. That's how I feel. A lot more shows I'm watching, and let's go ahead and talk about the #1 title for me. Mahotsukai no Yome, or is it no? Yeah, Mahotsukai no Yome. So, I want to ask Jessica to start off on this, and then I'll piggyback on that because I actually saw this back in when was it? August, when they had it in the movies or in the theaters. So having to watch it week by week, how did you feel, Jessica?
About the original movie or the season that's currently on air?
The season currently on air.
I love it. I've read the manga and I really enjoyed the manga, and one of the things I was a little worried about with this adaptation is that oftentimes when a manga is adapted, they'll use it as a storyboard and they'll follow the exact same sequence of events. They'll oftentimes use the same camera angles as the panels, and it just has this very stilted look to it. But this one doesn't do that. It actually brings its own ideas to the table, and it improves upon the manga to make the story flow more naturally. Case in point, in the manga, when Chisei first goes to Elias's house, he says, "Don't go outside with the fairies at night." So what does she do? She goes outside with the fairies at night. But in the anime,
Classic.
he doesn't warn her about that. And so it seems pretty natural when she leaves the house at night and goes and follows the fairies. It doesn't seem like the stupid horror movie cliche of doing exactly what you're not supposed to be doing because someone told you not to. And so I really appreciated the change that the anime had for the manga so far. It's probably my favorite show of the season, but that's just because I know where the story's going and I can anticipate future events. What do you think about it?
Well, I was also one of the big fans of the manga, and I really, really enjoyed it because it really hits to the types of shows I like, which are kind of. I love that slight tragedy
Mm-hmm.
or the main character, and how they push through it and how they go along in their journey. And And Mahotsukai, how she grows is very unique compared to others, you know, because of everything that's happened in her past being very harsh. She has a very bleak outlook, and rather than having a super optimistic, like harsh life or hard falling, she doesn't really have a bright outlook. So in this show, it's showing you how they're trying to change her outlook and how things are going for her. Even if it's like the most beautiful thing happening before her, deep in there, she still has that, you know, that dark thought.
Yeah, she has absolutely no self-worth whatsoever. At all. And with a death that happens in the third episode, no one else is sad except for Chise, and that's because the death that she has been around have all been premature and tragic and horrible, and would definitely make one sad. But they're trying to show her that in this case it can be beautiful, that it's part of nature, and that's just what happens to living things, is that they die, and that doesn't mean you have to get all upset about it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her grow as a person and come into her own, and learn to love herself.
To me, it seemed like in this third episode, actually, rather than showing her or her feeling sad or anything, she actually was envious of the death.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah,
And
she was.
that kind of made it even sadder because you're like, this girl, you know she's been through so much, but she actually, rather than being sad because of this tragic thing that's happening or supposed tragic thing, she's actually envious that she doesn't get to do that. Because
And
they
the dragon
insinuate,
calls her out on that too. He says
yeah,
the living should not envy the dead.
yeah, and they even insinuate it like through flashbacks, like she was going to commit suicide at some point
Yeah.
in time. So she's one of those characters that you really want to cheer for, and that's what makes this title so fun. Because even though she's very bleak and doesn't have, you just you just want her to grow, and you want her to be so much better, you know.
Right, and it's really a testament to the writing in the story that the story itself isn't bleak, that it's a hopeful one. Because she is surrounded by an absolute wondrous world where all of these amazing things are happening around her, and it's a contrast between what's going on in her head versus what's actually happening in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen the show yet, you really owe it to yourself to do so.
Yes. The other thing that I really love, which um, also it has a strong impact, is whenever they do a zoom in on her eyes, she
Yeah.
has this very tired look. And she's maybe, what, 16, 17 years old, around
Something
there?
like that. I think in the manga they say she has her 16th birthday at one point, don't they?
Yeah. I can't remember the birth dates, but um, she, you could tell she's just not physically, and she's emotionally tired as well and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And with Studio Wit doing that, they do a really good job. Even like in Attack on Titan with their character eyes on there, they had some
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful close up of the eyes and stuff. So
Yeah.
some of the close up on her eyes are just amazing. And then
And the art of the backgrounds too. Oh my goodness. Lots and lots of detail. You feel like you're there. I want to go to Iceland now. I don't even know if that's how it looks, but
yes, the only complaint I had for this whole thing was just how they translated uh, the slave Vega. It's like from reading the manga where they always translate it as Vega to being Beggy or Bega or however they say it now in their
well,
translations.
I have to wonder if that's if Slay Beggy is an actual thing from mythology, because so many of the names of the fairies and the creatures that she comes in contact with do have a mythological basis in our world. And I can't for the life of me figure out why they would choose Slay Beggy as the translation unless it does have some correlation to it in our world. But I haven't been able to find anything. I search for Slay Beggy and I just get Ancient Magus's Bride stuff. So
maybe you have to search like Celtic things because maybe it has a lot. They have a lot of things that deal with Celtic in that show, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also their spells that they use are visually stunning as well. Whenever they use magic. But I can't wait to watch more. I think we're just barely finishing the first arc and getting ready to start the next arc.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen it, once again with Jessica, I'm on it like 100%. Watch it. If you don't want to get too many spoilers, watch the OVA. I think after the season, because they released the 3-part OVA before this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that show is actually very fun too. Nick, did you watch the show? Or you haven't?
I attempted to watch it back across the various ways it has come out over time. It's just something I never caught on with, though.
Did anyone watch it in theaters when it came out?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I failed to grab like one of the OVAs, so I'm like,
So the video in theaters was just honestly the first 3 episodes, just put in a movie format. So there was nothing new, nothing added, nothing taken away. I think I actually maybe went just a little bit further than where episode 3 ended. But it was just so fun to watch that on the big screen. And now that it's coming back out, it's it's so great to watch. Be able to watch it over and over whenever I want to. Especially episode 3. Episode 3 is just amazing, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next title. But if you're the 2 viewers that are watching, if you haven't watched that show, please pick it up. You'll be surprised. Next up is Inishiki.
Inuyashiki?
There's no ya. It's Inishiki.
Yeah.
There is
There's
totally a
There's
ya.
totally a ya.
I don't like the ya. It makes me think of Inuyasha.
Yeah, this is like the next coming of Inuyasha. Just kidding.
When I first saw it, I was like,
so
I hope it's not that.
Yeah, let me actually give this one a little bit of the backstory before I say why I'm interested in it. So this title is called Inuyashiki, which doesn't really mean anything. It's just the main protagonist's last name. So we're going to call the title in English Inuyashiki Last Hero, because we need that tacked on. But anyway, it basically follows the creator of another slightly anime-related title called Gantz. Gantz had an anime a long time ago. It was mostly established as a manga and was one of the few that I've actually read for no particular reason. I was reading stuff back in the day, and it was a longer-running one, so I just followed it. Gantz is also pretty brutal, but it also had its own unique art style. Like, the manga looked rather odd in comparison to other mangas, and you know, we had the CG movie come out recently. It's had live actions, but you know, this is not Gantz, but it follows that creator. I'm pretty sure it's his next project. I haven't really researched the guy, but all I do know is a lot of the characters had that general aesthetic that some of the, like, that character design, that, like, a couple of them, I swear, is like set in the same world as Gantz, just a different story, time and place, but I think it's its own original world. Now, with that established, I just wanted to say, This will be a little bit spoiler heavy for the first 2 episodes because it's really hard to talk about it while omitting a lot of details. So what basically Inuyashiki is, it follows this rather haggard-looking 58-year-old. The main protagonist looks a little bit older than his age seems to indicate, and the first episode really establishes how not how dissatisfying his life is. It looks like he had kids when he was later. No one like in his family seems to appreciate him, and just a whole lot of stuff isn't going his way. He doesn't seem to be living a rather a bad life, just not much to look forward to. And he's out on a walk one day, and a very common trope in anime is to have aliens come crashing down to Earth, killing people in the way, and then we have to bring the people back, and the story ensues from there. And that's absolutely what happens here. However, in this blend, the aliens were in such a hurry to get off Earth, they just said, rebuild those people we killed. And they're like, well, all we have is wartime units, and that's not something this planet can handle. And the superior officer said, I don't care, just do it, we're getting out of here. So with no explanation, the characters are basically given advanced weaponized android bodies that literally, like, there's no how-to videos left for it. Like, they're left with no explanation. They just go about their day normally after the incident happens, not catching on until they start finding how different their bodies operate. So that's the premise of the first episode. But something that kind of weirds me out about this is it seems that this series is going to be a morality fight. The 2 characters who are affected here, one of them seems to have the morality that's similar to the American works of like Superman, right? He's the moral good. He looks to saving people. He doesn't want to use this body, as it seems right now, to do anything in his benefit or get ahead in life, just generally help people. And the other kid who inherited one of these bodies seems to be a psychopath who doesn't mind using advanced weaponized technologies to get away with killing people. And by the end of the second episode, the 2 kind of meet, which is kind of odd because we've got 10 episodes more to go off here. I thought this was going to be like one guy working subtly in society to pull this off, and the other guy slowly trying to find out like how he could pinpoint him down. But we have a meeting of these 2 in the second episode, and in the opening sequence of the show, we see a lot of them fighting, but it's like, we got 10 episodes more to go here. Like, what are we going to be watching? Like, we get that one guy is a psychotic killer, and we're probably going to want him stopped because he kills people in almost Gantz-like brutal ways. I'm just not sure what to look forward to this. Yeah, right. He is a psychopath.
He chose a house at random, went in there and killed everybody. He did the little, huh?
No, I was just going to say that is a. It seems like both of the characters went through an existential crisis, not knowing how human versus how much robot they now were. One kid, it seems like that's how it affected him and how he's using his new body, whereas our protagonist was really messed up with wondering how much this android body that he now has would like what it would happen to his humanity, and he was really upset over the fact that his emotions wouldn't show as well as when he had a human physical body. Like, he couldn't shed tears, and he was really worried about that. And by the end of one of the episodes, after he saved somebody's life, he is himself so worked up about it that emotion busts through that android body limitation. I don't know if it was a limitation to begin with, but all of a sudden that emotion that he couldn't exhibit was starting to show. And at that moment, he said, I am still human. And, so it's like his existential crisis was kind of solved right then and there. And with the other kid, he even had a friend that he was trying to show little bits of what this robot body can do. And his friend is still worked up. Is he still himself or not? Like one of the kid, the evil kid's friends is worried about him and how this affected him. So there does seem to be a lot of psychology to it. And I'm not sure if that's going to be like what a lot of the episode's going to be. our protagonist Inuyashiki trying to set him on the straight. And like, it's so weird to have them face off right then and there, and then like wondering what's to ensue for the rest of it. But sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
Oh, well, just that I think the kid was a psychopath before he became a robot, because there's a flashback where he says, well, as long as I don't know the person, if they're not friends or family, I don't really care if they die. That doesn't bother me. So he already had a very callous outlook on life and didn't respect the rights of others.
Because like when his friends thought about it for a moment, they're like, yeah, but isn't that pretty normal?
Yeah, he's already been kind of weird.
So like none of his friends brought the topic up, but when they had to look at the same thing he brought up, they're like, well, yeah, since we're not emotionally involved with those people, we don't really feel anything when they die. But whereas he was wondering about that as a kid, and the others were playing their Game Boy in the classroom. I know what you're talking about, and I agree, actually.
It's really odd. I think that you can't really judge it by the first episode, because the first episode was really rushed. They were trying to get from point A to point B so fast that it didn't really have time to settle how devoid of happiness Inuyashiki's life was.
And one thing that I forgot to say, this is actually animated by Studio Mappa, which they have projects all over the place. They don't really have like a settled vein. They do like, they did Yuri on Ice, they did Ushio and Tora. They're doing this season's Garo. What was that, Garo? The Vanishing Line, which had a lot of camera shake in that. But my point is, I think this is one of the, if it's not the first, I'm not sure of any other title that's coming to mind that they've worked on. I think this is their first full CG project, instead of having like CG coincide with 2D animation techniques. I think this is their first full CG one.
It does coincide with 2D though, doesn't it? Because there is 2D animation in Inuyashiki. It's really weird how they do it. Some of the close-ups are 2D, and all the robot stuff is definitely 3D. But the dog will be 3D, and then in some other shots will be 2D. So it looks funny. There's very little consistency between what models are being animated in which way. But also with the voice acting, do you think that they got live action actors for this? Because the language sounds very different from the typical Seiyu type acting. It just sounds off.
I mean, I didn't look up the cast, and yeah, I don't know why I remembered it being like a full CG. Maybe just because the opening film, the opening movie got me too much. But hard for me to say, because
I agree with that, Jessica, because when I watch like J-dramas and stuff like that, I get more of that kind of vibe when they're speaking here versus an anime when everything's very
everything's enunciated and clear. But in this one, they talk quickly and sometimes even mumble, or they'll slur some of the words together too. So I was just curious if anyone else had picked that up.
Sounds like Tank has. I was just kind of watching it for more of its story, and I don't usually analyze the voice actors too much unless they do this quirky thing that strikes me the right way. If it's bad, then oh well. As bad as that sounds.
I made my husband watch the opening animation because it's so wild.
Yeah.
The stuff they have skyscrapers erupting out of the back of Inuyashiki and some other just crazy shots, and I'm thinking, man, I'm in for a ride here.
Yeah. Like I said, I think that's what settled me into this thing was full CG, but then when I look back, I'm like, no, there's totally 2D animation in it. That opening visual must have just stuck in my mind that strongly. That opening sequence.
Oh, and I thought it was really funny that they had all the Gantz posters in the one kid's room.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And they were actually talking about the manga. Yeah, people online say it's not very good, but you should, actually read it. Like,
and that's why I didn't wanna,
shameless plug much.
but it's so funny too because like that boat has come and gone. Like there's nothing new Gantz coming out. Like it's an over and done with story. So like
Yeah.
to speak of fans as it's this relevant thing anymore. But yeah, that's absolutely why they did it. Is why I wanted to bring up that creator and like his character design and I don't know what the manga looks like because I've only ever read the Gantz manga all the way through. I haven't been much of a manga reader anymore ever since I like ramped up my anime watching levels.
I would say that the evil kid looks a lot like Kay from Gantz. You can definitely tell they were drawn by the same person. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
the character designs.
Mhm.
So.
Yep, very interesting show. I was really surprised by it.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect with it with the name. like with like the like I got held up by the Inuyasha bit too, I'll admit. But then I watched it and I was like, oh man.
So,
Oh man.
the thing that surprised me because I skip the openings and endings when I first start. Once I get midway through the season, then I'll start watching them. Or if they have a transition that's with the music that goes into it, and I miss stopping. So I didn't know anything about this, and then once they started opening themselves up and everything, I was like, "What? Whoa!" So with you having watched the opening, you probably already suspected that, right?
Oh yeah. I knew what was coming.
No, because I subscribe to Anime Strike, and so every month they'll give me free volumes of manga, and this month's was Inuyashiki. So I started reading it before the show premiered.
Oh, so yeah, I was actually in for a big surprise when I first saw that. So, and I had no idea what the show was going to be about, and I was like,
Not a clue. But that's how I watch all my anime.
so,
That's how I prefer it, honestly.
so that's
But I
that's
love
what.
free stuff, so
I get you. Don't worry.
Honestly though, this show kind of reminded me of what was that? That girl that can read minds.
Kotora?
Yeah, you know how they just had that over
Oh.
exaggerated bad life and everything, and all this stuff that just keeps on happening.
Yeah.
And then this old guy, it just shows him, no one's appreciating him. It even shows him like wanting to get back at some thugs, but he can't because he knows he's weak. And now he goes to the doc. He finds out all this stuff. He
Yeah.
can't talk to anyone. He just has it. I'm like, oh my god, this is just so over the top type of thing like that. So it kind of made me
Yeah,
think of
like
that.
I'll
And then
admit, Gantz
and
was
then
so
that
weird.
accident happened, and then I'm like, what? Oh, okay, this is really different.
Gantz was so weird because it had that highly, in my opinion, original style. Like, it started up as this weird sci-fi Men in Black, like, killing game thing that Gantz was, in my highest, well, not highest opinion, but in a high opinion of mine, pretty darn original. And then this one comes along, and while it's different because it's like, Astro Boy gone wrong. It had that obvious trope that we've seen so many times before of aliens trying to fix what accident they caused, but it's almost kind of funny the negligence about this one. It's like, we're not going to do this right. We're gonna do it and get out of here, and I guess hope that the space police never come after us. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's Friday. They don't want to stick around on a Friday.
So another thing, though, honestly, because I had no idea what was going on. As soon as that explosion happened, and they said two beings, you saw that kid at the very end, but I thought maybe he was the reason. So I thought it was talking about him and the dog. We're going to be like the machine at first.
The dog.
Yeah, but then you find out, oh, that kid really
But
was.
the dog actually presents like an interesting element of it as well, because as Inuyashiki goes through this transition of human to still human android, it's dogs largely can sense a lot of our emotions, and even down to like smell. Like we don't realize that we're exerting a lot of stuff, but they've done studies where dogs can literally pick up emotions through scent alone, a lot stronger with visual cues, mind you. But like even his dog had to kind of figure out if it was, you know, could tell what was going on. So like I appreciated that because it kind of had that, you know, will man's best friend still like me element about it. But
Well, in the manga, Hanako actually bites him when he first comes to and rejects him. So I was surprised that they truncated that as well.
Okay. Well, Inuyashiki, where's that airing?
Anime Strike, Amazon's channel.
Okay, so people who want to check that out, check out Amazon for that. Because I know it wasn't on Crunchyroll, and that's where I get my stuff, so I had to find it a different way.
Yarr.
Next up is Juni Tensen, or what do we see?
Tyson.
Yeah, Tyson, sorry, Tyson, Juni Tyson. So all I knew was when I heard that title, Juni is 12.
Yep.
So I was like, what's going to happen?
And Tyson's War.
So, another show I was kind of surprised about, and earlier this week I was talking to a friend about titles that he might want to watch. So now I have a new title for him because he's more into the battle type animes. This is right up the alley of those type of watchers, especially with it seems to follow the zodiac, right? The Chinese zodiac, the 12 clans, I should say. So if you know the Chinese zodiac, you should know what animals there are. And they have a person representing each clan that kind of has a characteristic of those animals. And I'm not too sure what this whole fight is about, but it seems like, is it every 12 years as well that they have this battle?
Yeah. Yep. It's every 12 years, and it just seems like basically the excuse of the Holy Grail War that the Fate series has started up.
Yeah, and
it is, but it's not the Holy Grail War.
And it also seems that the rules change in every single battle because they present rules at this fight that are different from what others remember. So this one actually threw me in for a loop at the end of the first episode with how they did the whole narrating and everything.
Oh, dude.
I'm not going to say anything because of
spoilers.
I'm not going to say anything because of spoilers right now.
Well, I'm absolutely going to say something because of spoilers. I won't say much, but
so right now it's really action packed, and at least at the start, and then it's kind of starts going low key and giving you more information on the different families and the different and what their I guess their call signs are. And they all have like killing in their name, like killing of
I'm chicken, I kill by pecking.
Yeah, and then the dog is killing by biting or something like that, right? So they have all these names and they're introducing everyone, so you can kind of tell what their abilities are, but from how they refer to themselves, which I think is dumb. Why would you say that, right? You're giving yourself away at the beginning of each battle. But I guess if you don't want to get any spoilers, just watch the show.
I will say though that if you know anything about the Chinese zodiac, is you know that there's a ranking to the animals. That the rat is the highest rank, and the boar or the pig is the lowest rank. And the way this show seems to be set up after the first 3 episodes is it's starting at the lowest rank with boar.
Holy crap, I didn't notice that.
For a point of view. The next lowest rank is dog, and he has a point of view episode. And the next one up from that is chicken. Now, the next one I think is monkey.
Yep.
So my money's on the rat to win, just because he has the highest ranking, and we're not going to get his point of view until the very end of the show.
That's actually what I was going to say. Is every time I don't know who I am in the Chinese zodiac, but every time we learned the backstory of the character, they were on their way out at like the tail end of the episode.
Yeah.
So that's all I was going to expose is like watch out for them like giving you a full background story on the person, because that seems to be a bad sign. But as you were talking about that, I had the info page pulled up, and it actually says the participants are 12 very strong warriors, and they actually had the ranking. As you were saying that, Jessica, I realized it's ranked in the order you were saying.
Well, the only reason
it's
I know
reverse
that
ranked.
is from Fruits Basket, right? Because they talk about the ranking of the animals in Fruits Basket a lot. And I'm watching this and I'm going, oh my gosh, they're going in order. So for me, that kind of takes the suspense right out of the equation, because
I mean, they could change the equation by the end, because we did have a weird fight between the ox and
the horse.
Yeah.
But
so like they apparently have fought.
There's also another wrench in there because the snake's dead already.
Right. I'm not necessarily saying it's who's going to die, but who it's a very high probability that if you're a character in this show with a point of view episode, you are going to die. And they're doing it in order. So, and
like
I don't
little
know if the
minor
horses,
plot twists here and there out of the way, but
I would hope so. I mean, it's Nishiyoshin, so I really hope that after establishing the pattern, what's going to happen is the pattern will break. I hope that's how it is, because if it just keeps up with this pattern, it's going to be a snooze fest.
The only other thing
it's still entertaining at some level beyond that.
Yeah.
But the only thing I also want to mention about the show is, does anyone think that this was kind of animated similar to the God Eater series that was released?
Well, no, but the studio that did this was Grafnica, and the other stuff that they've done was Expelled from Paradise. They did a Drifters OVA, not the main series. They got like a credit there. But I mean, I don't know, because like everything that I see credited to them as either a movie or an OVA series or a net release. Like this is the first like televised anime thing that they've done.
I know it's not the people that did God Eater. I know who did that, but it has some very similar aspects of how they did the animation for that.
I got you.
It looks really good, though. It's well animated. It has an awesome opening theme that I watch every time. So I'm just hoping that the story will get a little more exciting. That's all.
I mean, I've actually been rather interested in it just because the whole weird thing here, in my opinion, like this is just me analyzing this series and complaining about it as, you know, a basic level fan here. So you have these like glorified assassins who hone their skill over the course of their life, and they somehow, like within a 12-year period, represent a new animal of the zodiac, because apparently, you know, with these wars happening every 12 years and you're killing off 11 of the best assassins for what reason, I don't know. I mean, I guess we could always use less assassins in the world. I'm not complaining there. It just seems weird that like we just have this Holy Grail-esque tournament for I don't know exactly what reason. Like you just have a much more of a prominent show if you just like talked about these guys in more of a different style. But like it's interesting how they each have, and like a psychic-esque ability is a big part of the show. Each one has a skill that like breaks the laws of physics, usually in somehow, some way. And I you know, that just kind of amazes me, because it's like I don't know what kind of a world it's set up in. Do we get people with special powers in like once every 12 years, or you know, those are the questions I'm asking, and I don't want them answered. It's just looking at the lore of the world, it's just stuff that I have issues with the story. But it's watching the characters and the fight progress is still fundamentally interesting to me. I kind of like what it's going through.
So I kind of was thinking about that too, about how they got the powers and everything, and I thought it was because of the families. But then when you saw the background of the chicken, you realized that she was adopted. She wasn't part of the actual family, maybe. So
yeah,
how did these families have those powers? That's another interesting thing.
And they talk about how the city was of a population of 500,000, and all those people are gone.
Yeah.
Where'd they go? Are they dead? Are they just relocated? I mean, and who on earth is the proctor of this, I don't know, examination or tournament or whatever? What's in it for him exactly?
Right.
So there are a lot of questions that don't really hold up under scrutiny, but I don't know if that's because the world isn't built right or because we just aren't privy to that information yet.
You find out
I
it's
got you.
You find out it's Cube running after.
Oh, screw Cube.
It's for the entropy and everything.
Yeah.
Well, action pack, bunch of fun, manipulation, all sorts of crazy stuff going on. If you like that, you might want to pick this up. Is this on Anime Strike too, or?
No, this is Crunchyroll.
Oh, it was on
Oh, shoot.
Crunchyroll?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. I think they call it Junie Tyson's Zodiac War. Is
Oh,
how
okay.
they put the Zodiac War in the subtitle, I think. Let me check.
Well, I didn't see it.
No, I believe it is Crunchyroll.
I must have missed it then. So Crunchyroll.
Yeah, they have it as Junie Tyson, but it's one U, and then Zodiac War is how it's romanized.
All right. So
We don't need to put proper Japanese in the English title.
No, why would we want to do that?
you know what? Just for this title, I got like 2 keys for that 48-hour Crunchyroll free premium thing. So I'll put that out on Anime Talk. So if you don't have Crunchyroll, you can.
Oh,
use
you
that
know
to
what?
watch
I
that.
should do the same thing because I have a bunch of those keys myself.
So check out Anime Talk after this, and we'll have some keys posted for you. If you don't have Crunchyroll, you can watch this. Let's see what else do we have coming up next in our Anime Talk. Oh, it's everyone's favorite show. The what do you call it? Shoujo or Shobichi? Sorry, excuse my language, but that's what it's called. Okay. My girlfriend is a showbiz.
Dude.
Or something like that.
I actually learned that just recently here is we usually heavily censor the names that don't make a lot of sense, or you like last season we had Aho Girl, which translates roughly to like idiot girl or something similar, and in English we wanted to call it Clueless Girl. Like we usually heavily censor that stuff. Not for this title.
Yeah, so I think the word bichi in Japan is usually referred to as sluts and stuff like that, rather than using it as a curse word that we use it here. So yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't censor that at all or anything like that. So give me a second. So that did surprise me. Now this is based off of a manga. I believe it was a 4-panel manga when it started, and I've read quite a bit of the manga, and it's hilarious. It reminds me a lot of SYD, but going a little more extreme. And this boring, everyday, typical boy has a fantasization of the beautiful class president, admires her from afar, as you could say, and finally has the courage to ask her out. And lo and behold, she accepts, but little does he know how her mind actually works. And it's really funny because as you go through the season, you find out that she's pretty pure, and there's just something about what she's taught that just makes everything wrong. And this show does a lot of the miscommunication, play on words of how things are interpreted by other people. And like right off the bat, like when she accepts, she's like, I'll learn the basic 48 positions of sex since I'm your girlfriend now. And he's like, what? So
Yeah, like it's almost kind of funny because established that he is going out with her and she is his girlfriend, this show has surprisingly high amount of elements that typically follow the harem tag, even though like this one doesn't get it because I guess he has the girlfriend, and like every member that would be in the harem if he didn't have the girlfriend likes to talk in that elusive way where they're totally getting at something to confuse the girl because they're indirectly like hitting on the main character, and it's part of the humor is who does and doesn't pick up on those references. You know, certain characters wouldn't get the misleading, and when others do, and the various other sitcom-esque stuff that it makes with that type of comedy.
If anything, the main girlfriend, it reminds me a lot of like what was her name in Date Alive?
Toka? No, I'm kidding.
No, not Toka.
Origami, I believe.
Yeah,
is the one
Origami.
you're talking about.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot of her, but she's, instead of being pushy and trying to get him in the sack, she's trying to do everything to learn all about that to please him, but she herself doesn't know what she's really saying or what she's really getting herself into. So like even at one point she's like, "Oh, we'll just have to do whatever's in this book," and she opens it and she's like, "Oh, I did not expect that." So she's got a lot to learn too, and it's funny because they use a lot of like tropes and eroge things that she tries to use to think that that's what he wants, but of course he just wants an everyday normal life, a little normal girl. So like she tries to be a sadist to him and everything, calls him, looks down to him and says all these things, thinking that he might be a masochist. And so the whole series I expect is just going to be nothing but that. And probably the only thing I can hope for is that there is some kind of progression in their relationship by the end of the season. But in these types of shows, it usually just nothing but long running gags, and it just continues going on with the jokes. But you might find some gems. You might find some of the comedy funny. So I honestly can't say it's for everyone, but there's a lot of things out there that you might find funny, especially if you're into edo humor, I guess you want to call it. You have anything to add, Nick? Or
No, like I said, the sitcom is unique here because it's never been on the table as much as it has in this show, in my opinion. Like there's no other. If another show employed that type of humor, it was more for the short duration of the episode or for a specific scene or two. Whereas this show tries to put that as its main premise. I can't readily come up with something that does sitcom in this specific way. So to me, it's some level of unique, but because of the content that it has, it's also hard to recommend. Just go watch the show that has bitch in its title.
Well, not much to say about that show. Just erotic humor in a nutshell. I do like the scene changes every once in a while. They're kind of funny how they did it. Next title, Diez Irae. Irae, right? Diez Irae. I can't read what it says underneath there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much just desire, just broken up in like the same thing. I think that's what it's getting at.
I think I've seen this one came with the episode 0, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's only on episode 2, technically 3 episodes out, right? So it seems that Nick dropped it, but Jessica still has it marked as something interesting.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, it's greenlit for 18 episodes.
Dies Irae means Day of Wrath in Latin.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
That was off.
There's a ton of German in there too, because the bad guys are card-carrying Nazis. And they really should not have started with episode 0. They really, really shouldn't have. There are characters in there that are fighting, having conversations. We have no idea who they are, how they relate to one another, what they're doing. It's just an incomprehensible mess. It makes no sense. Episode 0 would have been a great episode to put halfway in the series when you just learn the truth about the world. You know, you always have one of those episodes or a flashback episode where the entirety of the story is revealed. That's what episode 0 should have been. But it's also pretty damn uncomfortable because the main character of episode 0, who they kind of set up as a protagonist, is an actual historical character and one of the architects of the Holocaust. I shit you not. He's a real guy. The other character, Karl Kraft, I had to look him up because I didn't recognize his name. But he was also a real person that helped out the Nazis. He was an astrologer, and he came to fame because he predicted that someone would try to assassinate Hitler, which any idiot would know, because if you're the leader of a warmongering nation, you bet your bottom dollar someone's going to try and kill your leader. So anyway, that's kind of a high bar to entry on this, because episode 0 doesn't really make it clear if we should be rooting for these guys or if they're, you know, bad. It's kind of fuzzy on that subject.
And you know, for the large part, I really do agree with you, because I think that's largely why I chose to drop it, because I also thought the same way, but at the same time, when you go on to watch episode 1, like thinking, what if I didn't watch episode 0? Because that's the perspective I try to apply. It's kind of weird how you have this like modern day school anime thing, and then the characters that you saw in episode 0 start showing up at the end of it. It's like, okay, it's nice that we're pre-exposed to them with episode 0, but if I didn't watch episode 0, which I already don't like, lost as to what these guys are doing here now.
Yeah, but I think that would be a lot easier of a pill to swallow, not knowing who those random people were, than what we were given, where we have all these with superpowers. Apparently that was a thing in the 1940s. And all of these crazy things happening with absolutely no context. It was just an incomprehensible mess. And after the episode was done, I kind of sat there. My husband wandered out, and I go, the protagonist is a Nazi. He kind of had this horrified look on his face, like, what are you watching? I don't know. But they also didn't fully commit to it. So they have the armband, but there's no swastika on that thing. It's some other symbol. I forget what it is. It's like
it looks like a star.
It does, but they've got the Iron Cross, and they've got the skull on the hats and stuff. So it's just, why didn't they go full Nazi? I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound, right?
Yeah. So I mean, that confused me too, because I was like, for some reason when I started watching it again, because I watched it for episode 0, then nothing, and I started watching again. Then when they came up with those bands, I'm like, wait, were they Nazis?
Yeah.
Then I saw them, like, there's no swastika.
Well, the only thing that clued me in was the name of the main character in episode 0.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I don't know famous people's names at all. The only thing that clued me in is when they were praising the guy with blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm like, all right, gotcha.
There was that. There was, I think one of the women was fighting an androgynous character, and she called them filth, because if you weren't perfect, then you weren't fit for the Third Reich. But then also Crunchyroll did a weird thing where Heydrich actually says Sieg Heil, the Nazi salute, but instead of just subtitling Sieg Heil in the bottom, Crunchyroll did like Victor, may we be victorious, I think is what they translated it as. And so it's almost like we're so afraid of offending people that we don't want to go the whole hog, but then that kind of guts the meaning too. But then what is the meaning? What is this show? What are the aims for this show? And it's just kind of a complete and utter disaster. But episode 1 was actually more interesting. So I can totally understand why people dropped it after episode 0, because it's just, that was a shitty episode.
Yeah. I did like the two characters that the protagonist seemingly will converse with most. I was kind of interested in the hole in the wall room gimmick, but I still think I ended up dropping it just because.
Is this based on an Arrow game at all?
I have no clue.
Because
I'll try to look.
Setting up a harem type thing. And I do like dark visual novels, and this kind of reminds me of the Muv-Luv adaptation that we got with the Stasi, where that was surprisingly deep and complex. And I don't know if D.S. Raya is going to go there or not, but I'll give it a couple.
It says visual novel. It says
it
visual
is.
Novel. Maybe an Otome game? I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely giving me the Otome vibe.
Yeah. When I saw all those characters, I'm like, oh, they all look so beautiful. It's got to be an Otome type thing.
I mean, it might be originally a visual novel, but it seems they went multimedia from there. It also has manga and other venues, but it's still probably originally, at its core, was a visual novel.
Speaking of Otome, the dances with, what was it, Dances with a Vampire? What was that one show that came out a few seasons ago?
Boond?
Oh, Dance with Devils?
Dance in the Vampire Boond?
Yeah, Dance with Devils has a movie coming out this season.
Okay. So yeah, at this point, I hesitate to even admit that I'm watching this show.
Well, let me know if it actually goes good.
Yeah. The only reason I'm sticking with it right now is because I really want to know what the whole guillotine thing with that protagonist.
Yeah, the song. Oh my god.
That weirded me out a little bit. Like
that
it didn't.
Pretty...
It wasn't an anchor for me. The strongest anchor are still the two characters in the hole in the wall. But that's like, I'm like, should I watch it for that reason alone? No. Okay.
No.
Once I learned about the guillotine, I might drop it. But other than that, I'm going to keep on watching.
The funny thing is, it's actually to the usage statistics of the hyperlinks that Tank sets up on that particular site. It's the 5th most popular of the season right now.
Seriously? Wow. Goodness.
It gets number 22 in highest ratings, but of the people who submit their opinion, this thing got enough push to push it up to number 5, which it would not approach anywhere near my list, but maybe they know something I don't.
Well, perhaps it's so controversial that people are checking it out just to see, is this really as bad as other people are saying?
Maybe.
There's quite a few other shows this season to do that with, not so much this one. Between Sonovich and the Imoto anime of the season.
All right. Let's go to the next title. What is the next title? What is this?
King's Game.
Yeah.
Oh, Sama Game. Who hasn't heard of that amongst like watching all sorts of anime? Is this game played in America? I want to know.
No, I think when they do play, it's typically in like karaoke bars and stuff like that. Karaoke plays.
Well, or like at a friend's home or something. At a hotel room is another common venue, but like in the States, like how do you explain this?
Simon Says.
No. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know in what context because I only know the little paddle light game. But anyway, so yes, if anyone who's not aware, the Osama game is a game that you'll mostly see played at some point or another if you're a true anime fan. It involves usually using stick drawing system or a handing out of cards, some way to designate the round of players, whoever's present. As you draw your sticks, you know what number you are, but sometimes people expose everyone's numbers, but mostly they're supposed to be kept hidden. One person draws a king stick, and he's able to make a vague order. You know, if there's 7 people playing, number 1 and number 7 do something, or like number one does something to two or number whatever. Like he just comes up with something. Then everyone's identities are revealed, and the order gets carried out. I'm not sure what happens if you refuse the order, like what the penalties are. Most people just always do it. Now, I'll admit, I checked this one out, and to me, the first episode was a mess. I wasn't convinced I was going to watch more of it, but I stuck in there, and it made, to me, a rather interesting title. So how the Osama game works in this anime is there is this godlike entity that's communicating through cell phones, and at the strike of midnight, it, I guess, has picked a classroom somewhere in Japan, maybe multiple classrooms, but it only seems to have ever settled on one so far. And it brings everyone's student number and their name, like whatever desk number they were with their name, and it comes up for orders for the whole class. And you have to follow those orders through by midnight, or it will dish out a punishment, usually death, but not restricted to. Sometimes it seems to be lenient, but for the most part, it's death.
And it's a pretty horrible death, too. It's
yeah.
not an easy...
So at first, a lot of people don't treat it as real because, like, you just start receiving text messages about orders and, who would do embarrassing stuff. It kind of reminds me of some other elements of anime, like that Erabe anime back in the day where this character was encumbered by a choice that he had to publicly humiliate himself or succumb to like a head-splitting headache until he completed one of the two conditions. But Osama Game seems to get at really gritty subtext or content. It's not afraid to have two characters hook up in bed by fourths, or else you're most likely going to die. It is the sentiment that everybody has. But once in a while, it does throw the it didn't actually force punishment as a death, which has only happened so far once in what I've seen of it. But it's literally this physical ruling entity that's just handling the lives of a student-wide classroom and being highly unfair in the process. And mostly you're kind of watching the psychology of the students kind of break down as they succumb to having that knowing that they have to do whatever the king's game is. This anime also seems to put a pretense in to draw some interest where it seems like a character, once she learns of the mechanics at play here, seems to, I guess, become manipulative to try to maybe make it so that she can at least get out alive more so than anyone else. Like, I didn't understand that if that was a personality change or exposure.
I didn't get it either.
Because, like, every once in a while you'll have an anime. There was one last season where a character fronts as this really nice person, and she's, really manipulative and vindictive beneath it. And I didn't know if that was her all along or only in response to this situation. I don't know. But it's just kind of interesting how you have one protagonist who wants to get through the game with as many people alive as possible, and this other character who just seems to be okay with, no, we need to reduce our numbers, and and everyone's supposed to be okay with this. So, I mean, it's not that I can call it a flaw, because it almost seems to be getting into that genre of, like, what really it reminds me of is something like, not Mirai Nikki, the Future Diary thing, but like that author style is what it does, at least to some extent, remind me of. Especially with that, what did they do after that Mirai Nikki thing? What was that most recent thing they did? Do you remember, Jessica? The weird one with the character who's like declared king or something as like a figurehead, and he has to. I don't know. I forget.
Nothing's coming to mind.
I'll have to look it up real quick.
I had some friends compare this to Battle Royale a little bit.
I never saw Battle
I can see
Royale.
That. But I just meant that author style is what it was kind of reminding me of, with like
borderline psychotic characters and
that Gasai character that always seems to be present in all their work somehow, some way.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a thing for that character type. Excuse me.
Yeah. because though I think one of the biggest reasons people compared it to Battle Royale is that in Battle Royale, it's one class that's chosen, kind of like in this situation,
Oh,
and then
okay, yeah, I do know Battle Royale.
there's
Yeah.
also at least one person that knows what's going on because they were in it previously, right?
Well, kind of, except, well, like the interesting thing here is we're almost getting two stories because although we're watching one of the characters who has been in one prior, as you just stated, um, alongside the students going through this current one, we're having plenty of flashbacks about that him telling stories of the first time he went through it. So we're almost getting like two different timelines for the price of one here.
And in some ways, I kind of respect that as a framing device. I thought it was way better to have someone that's gone through it than to just have the entire class bicker about whether or not this is really real for 5 episodes.
Jessica, I remember the name of that one I was thinking of, Big Order, the guy who could like lay an Osama order down on someone and they have to follow it.
I remember that one now. That was so bad.
But like, this is what it reminds me of. Like that author, if it didn't come from them, I'd be surprised, but I don't think it came from them. I think it's like almost like a copycat author here. I've been so inspired.
I think this is based on a web novel from China, I want to say.
I gotcha.
I could be wrong. But I don't know. I'm sort of in it because it's like a B horror movie. It's entertaining and you can't take it seriously.
Right.
So there is an entertainment value to be had with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you like schlocky stuff, then this would be right up your alley.
I think it was a manga before.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Maybe not this story, but I think they have like other stories of something.
They might have an adaptation.
Yeah.
I'll check it out real quick.
Because the thing I'm looking up, it just says prequel, which is the manga. So.
The prequel might be the story that we're being told of as, you know, what I called 2 for the price of 1 earlier.
Oh, okay. It's a cell phone novel, which is somehow different from a web novel.
Oh.
I wrote it on my cell phone, so it's different.
Yeah.
It takes longer.
It's funny, but at least for me, the character designs of the flashback class are more memorable and distinctive than the current class that he's in. Are you gonna keep watching it, Nick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It has hooked me. I'm interested in the story it's telling. I'm just surprised it's not by that one guy. Or girl, whoever it is, who wrote Feature Diary in Big Order. I'd say if you like those two, like check this one out. And you know, I understand the Battle Royale tie-in thing. I never was fond of that series. I just never watched it. I really never tried, in all honesty, but I could see the semblance there. But like, as far as the tropes go, I'm not sure how well that carries over. To me, like the tropes on this one lie really close to Big Order. It doesn't have the flashy action combat, and it doesn't seem like it wants to establish that, but like, it just feels so inspired by it, in my opinion. If I were to mix that story with Battle Royale, you'd probably get this.
All right, next title. We got... Oh, come on, Mr. Mouse. Black Clover.
Oh gosh.
Okay, the only reason I wanted to bring this up is because I wanted to know if anyone else was annoyed by the voice acting.
Yes.
So I thought this was going to be a good... Actually, it seems like it could be a good show. It's just that the main character, he annoys the hell out.
Like nails on a chalkboard, man.
Constant yelling. I thought...
I know what you guys are saying. I just can't help but wonder if this one's supposed to be just, you know, targeted at that much younger of a generation, because that's what it looked like to me. Like,
it would have to be, because it's so incredibly derivative that anybody who's read even one shonen manga knows exactly how this story is going to go.
Yeah.
So the only people that would appeal is someone young who's never read the great shonen series. Because, okay, I've only watched the first episode, but I would put money on the fact that there's a wizard exam.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that. Yep, there is? Yeah, okay, I thought so.
I'm waiting for
It's going to be like a tournament thing by the looks of it.
Oh,
all like the top talent of the initial wizards who just got their Grimoire are going to have like this tournament 1v1 style, and you have like a lot of flashy styles in it by the looks of it. The themed, my Grimoire gives me this kind of magic, and I'm good at these kind of attacks. Like almost like not like the Boku Hero Academy story thing, but kind of like whenever they did their tournaments, it's what this thing's looking like it's trying to pull off.
I see.
The Neko Mimi. The Neko Mimi should be in appearing.
They're a Neko Mimi? Oh, that might save it. No.
No, I just expect it because of everything I've been seeing.
Yeah, but I mean, it follows that formula, right? So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jack this thing. George, if you're going to say something about it before I go into my spiel.
Oh, I was just going to complain more because...
Oh, okay.
It just really annoyed me. The only thing I did like was his relationship with his sister, and
right.
And then that's the only thing that truly brought a smile to my face. But just how annoying he is and everything just kills the show.
Yeah, this one seems to be like that, what I call like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing, just aimed at a younger group of anime fans. The formula here is two kids are orphaned at a young age, and an orphanage takes them in, and they have very common orphan problems, right? Their orphanage is poor. They don't have premium food. They have to scrape by sometimes. And there's magic in this world, and it seems like everyone wants to make it as a mage. The mage is like the coding job of today. And you have like a natural affinity with it, and you can do some things from there, but people mostly go by what their natural affinities are. And of the two orphan kids, one actually had a rather impressive magical affinity, and he seems to be capable of a lot. And the other was a magic talent 0. Now, this should already be ringing some bells in any, formula, lifelong anime fan of some guy who has no talent. And as I watched into it, it comes to find out that the Grimoire you're given tends to have like a clover ranking on it. And 4 is like the last guy who took down the Demon King had one of those. And those are like what everyone wants to get. The main protagonist gets one of, well, not the main protagonist, his rival, orphan friend, got the 4-leaf clover Grimoire, and he was looking forward to getting one because he had no magic talent and he doesn't get one. To which later there's a fight, someone's trying to steal his friend's 4-leaf clover Grimoire, even though no one can use it. They apparently sell well in the black market, so they just wanted to get it to, for money. And narrates, not the protagonist at this point, not the guy getting his 4-leaf clover one storing, a 5-leaf clover Grimoire. Instead of getting one in the Magic Academy, he generated his out of thin air. And while he still has no magic talent, it seemed he always had to train a whole bunch as a small lad, because if he couldn't use magic, he at least focused on his physical well-being. He gets this rusty giant-looking sword that seems to be able to nullify other people's magic under certain conditions and augment his physical prowess. So now he wants to go off and be the magic king, or whatever it's called, the head honcho mage
Wizard
of the government.
King. Yeah.
Even though he still has no magical talent, he's going to go through the tournament with 0 magical talent, with his 5-clover Grimoire, and with his massive sword that seemingly, under certain conditions, can negate magic.
All right.
And the story will ensue from here.
Just real quick, I'm sorry. I just got a message from one of my friends that's supposedly reading the manga. So I'm dropping the show because no Neko girls here. So.
Oh.
I was willing to hold it and just have that guy knowing me, but if there's no Neko Mimis, I don't know.
I got you, man.
I don't know if even Nekomimis could tempt me back to this one.
I mean, I tend to like, the supernatural battle power animes at some point, and I'm willing to watch shonen shows. This one hasn't impressed me as much as some of recent, like the Gundam Build Fighter series, or even the one I liked from last season, the Knights in Magic, which also kind of had that mech tie-in, but it's not having fun with what it is, so it's not like high on my list of shonen shows, but I'm willing to watch this one at least a little bit longer, probably all the way through, unless it somehow rubs me the wrong, super raw, since it's like this formula, the shonen show that you can pretty much predict. I do intend to watch those and refine my ability of prediction.
Oh, well, you know what? I will admit that I like shonen shows because they can be really fun and lighthearted and great to watch, but this has nothing original to
I
it
got
at
you.
all.
I know.
Yeah.
So, the only thing I want to say is, Jessica, I challenge you to watch episode 3. his constant yelling of "Mada Mada" or "Not yet." It's so annoying.
Gosh. I want to have an intact TV monitor, and I think if I heard that, I would be punch through it.
Though I have to say, I feel
So just get
sorry
this
for that
projector
voice
set up
actor.
so that if you like go after the wall or whiteboard,
Whoever that voice actor was, that's constant yelling. I wonder what he goes through just to record his lines every day.
He's gonna
that'll be like
have
one
a
Seiyu
voice of
interview that the guy's just like, man, my vocal cords at the end of one of these sessions.
He's gonna have a 4-pack a day voice if he's not careful.
Yeah, that's the only reason I want to bring this up. It's your typical shonen show that will annoy you. Just because of the voice.
like I'll admit, it's not the best example of one, but I'm willing to. I usually like seeing how certain people present like thematic abilities. Like I'm always in it for the thematic abilities and expanding my understanding of all that and how it's done. So that's just a particular interest of mine when it comes to anything anime, and you have to try really hard to shake me off that shit.
Okay, next up is...
But that Day of the Wrath one seems to have done it quite well.
The next title for our talk is going to be the newest advertisement for Line.
And they do it so well.
Just because.
They do it so well.
Just because, we have to talk about it. Just because, right? So...
And, it's funny you say that because the Line thing turned me off of Tsukiga Kirei last season.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they kept talking about it. So, what do you know if Line was actually on the production committee for Just Because?
I don't know, but
I can look it up to see if they're a producer.
For the cameras.
Because the other thing that mystifies me is that the reviews for this one have been overwhelmingly positive, and some are even calling it anime of the season, and you have to watch this, it's a real treat. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm going, I'm not feeling it. Am I missing something? Because it's just not doing it for me.
I think episode 1 was a tad lackluster. So I think episode 2 picked up just a little bit, but it is a slower paced drama, so...
it is entertaining.
I like
it. The thing with Line that I think they did better this time was they didn't constantly say line. It's more or less like, oh, do you have this contact information? Oh, can I add you? But they never mention line, at least. But you could tell it's Line by the design.
The interface.
Well, I've watched up to episode 3, and they do name drop Line.
But he was saying Tsukiga Kirei did it more consistently. Like,
oh, okay.
Like they did it more than once per episode.
Mm.
And the funny thing is, I'm a happy user of Line. Like I don't talk on it a whole bunch, but like whenever I play a little dinky Android-y game or, just mobile game, a lot of times their chat interfaces really are horrible. They give you text limits, and they're just not intuitive. And using Line, it's like a standard that it's because I don't personally use Facebook. Facebook is a very common messenger, but like when it comes to what third-party messenger do you move to, certain people would recommend Kick back in the day, but that one like wouldn't allow massive groups, so that kind of made it the chopping block. And then I was actually introduced to Line through the gaming community itself, and from there I used it, and then I found out, hey, it's a Japanese app. Hey, they got anime stickers that you have to pay for, but I like that. So then I became a bigger fan of using it as a whole. So
I think.
So whenever I see it in an anime or hinted at, I feel a little happy on the inside.
I think here in the States, it's Discord, right, or something like that. That's constantly used for the group chats.
For gaming, yeah, but in the I'd say just for social reasons, like if you wanted a free net messenger and just wanting to use it as a net messenger, I'd compare it to WhatsApp as just kind of like the bigger. WhatsApp seems like a watered down line to me, and like they fundamentally work the same way, where like they don't. When you have like Facebook Messenger, like it runs on your computer, it runs on all your devices, it kind of connects everywhere, and Line doesn't like running on more than one phone. Like if you move to another phone, it says you have to stay on one device, so you couldn't have the same Line account on everything. And I think WhatsApp kind of did the same thing, and like. They make a computer application that you have to install. It's not like website offered. You have to like grab the software and install the client into the computer. Because like Line is more of a social networking package than it is just you can like make like the group web albums that everyone can submit pictures to and stuff, and it make posts and do all the other stuff that like you can on Google or Facebook, but my usage of it has always been more of a messenger personally.
All right. Real quick, because we're actually falling for the whole trick of talking about Line and not the show.
No, we aren't.
Their advertising worked.
So just because is what is it? The transfer student comes back after 4 years. He's
there's some period of time that I wasn't exact on that.
I think it's like the third quarter of his third year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So the transfer student coming back, and it's him wandering around, getting used to his new school. Then he eventually meets up to hit some of his old friends from middle school, and now it's all about catching up and then talking about what's been going on, and then they start showing you the whole romance aspect and the love triangles that are going on, or it's one of those types of shows that it kind of upsets me. Like, why are they doing this? But it's just really successful in how they're doing it. Like the boy loves the girl, but the girl loves that other boy, which loves that other girl. So it's one of those, and the one also big reason that I'm watching it is that the character designs remind me a lot of that short that Monday show. I can't remember what it was called.
Short, that Monday show.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, like
Three Children?
No. It was before the season before that, where like this girl would get on the train, and then every Monday these two people would meet up each other, and one of them was a student, and the other one was an office worker, something like that.
I don't think I saw that one.
I don't remember watching that.
It came out as a web series, and then eventually it was put online. But the character designs are so similar to that that's one of the other big reasons why I'm watching this, because I like the character designs. I like how they draw them out. But one of the biggest things that bugged me recently was the dog eyes. The eyes.
Yeah. They gave him anime eyes that look so weird.
I'm used to it being on cats, but not on dogs. But other than that, it's interesting because of where they're at. It doesn't seem like they're in a country. They're more parts of a city, from what I've seen of how the places are. And it seems like he came from somewhere that was. I don't know. I'll have to do more research to see where he came from because I wasn't really paying attention. But there's a lot of things going on that like everyone's trying to get the attention of the other person, but they're too busy, preoccupied with something else that's going on. So
Yeah, like, to weigh my 2 cents in on it, though, real quick, if you don't mind me cutting you off. It was hard for me to place this one's timeline, because, like, I know it's set in modern day, but, like, I'm sure many people here can attest to the fact that smartphones were not prevalent in my childhood. They started pretty much when I was working like a working adult. So, and we can see a lot of that conflict with schools reacting to smartphones now being like a hand-me-down constant thing. Like everyone pretty much has a smartphone. And I couldn't tell if they were of the generation that always had a smartphone or, it just got integrated as they were going from middle school to high school, because I think that's a little bit important here because, smartphones, as they're portraying in the anime right now, it's doing a really good job of keeping the group together. As they go on outings, they submit the group images, and whenever they're walking around, the way that they put the interface on top of the current layer of animation, how they submit the messages, instead of pulling up the phone for you to look at, you just see them having the conversation as the character is typing away at his phone, and they're just putting that, imposing it on the screen, so you don't have to cut to the cell phone. So the only thing I wasn't clear on is, like, if they were of the generation that always had smartphones, like, what caused the drifting initially? Or did they get exposed to all of this when they were basically started going through high school? Like, was that the generation when the cell phones hit? They weren't clear on that, because while I do like how they're showing how the group is going to stay connected at the moment, I just don't know why it became this way now. Like they didn't do a good job of explaining that, and it wouldn't really
I
change the
thought they
story of
did.
the whole
They
as they
did.
did.
They did because he talks about he's like they were going to text each other every day, and then after a while it became once a week just because they had nothing to really say to each other.
I mean, yes and no, but
Which
like, because that still falls into that, text interface has been around since I was a lot younger, and most people don't stay connected through like a relay chat thing that you have to go to the chat and do. But like when social networkings enter, they kind of, as long as you log into that service, you get exposed to the people and can chat, like, if I talk about the movies that are hitting the U.S., anyone following me can like learn of it and then reach out to me individually because, hey, they're like, hey, that guy's talking about something again. Like, it does to me matter a little bit, but like, it's not gonna change the story from this point. But it's information I would like to know is all I'm saying. And I did watch Tsuki ga Kirei, and while that one was a lot more slower and based in not like a feeling of I think it's supposed to be a feeling of nostalgia for like an older crowd, but this one's just definitely the romance story of high schoolers, which isn't always a bad thing if you're into those stories. They're not like high on the comedy like that Treasured Children was.
yeah, this one seems more serious. Not too much comedic moments, though they do have a few,
Mhm.
especially with that the side
It
character
is
friend.
very slice of life and very. I always link romance and drama together. Like, if romance is there, I just call it drama because that kind of covers that.
So this one
Yes.
is a little bit different, I think, also from other titles because rather than the romance being in the middle of the year, it's also tends they're targeting everything at the end of the year,
Yeah,
where
since the
cram school, they gotta get ready for the graduation, all those tests they're gonna have to take, college. So they're getting thrown into these romance situations at the worst time for them right now.
and it's so weird because it's like the transfer student indirectly instigated it. Because that guy's back now and we're interacting with him, we're going to start paying attention to romance all of a sudden. Like, we didn't really need that guy before, and why he's the trigger, we're not sure. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I always liked this one girl, but since you came back and we played baseball together, I'm going to go ask her out. Because we did that. As irrelevant as it is.
So let's go to the next title, just because this one's over. La 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 la. Oh, what is this called? Net Netju no Suzume? What was the English translation? Like my MMOR?
Recovery of an MMO junkie.
Yeah, the recovery of the MMO junkie.
Yeah.
I don't know if Suzume means that, but
I think, like, literally the Japanese title is the
Cat Planet Cuties.
uh
I'm just kidding. This title has nothing to do with the translation.
yeah, I don't know. Like, the
What?
synonyms aren't even helping me out there. They're usually a pretty straightforward translation, but this one seems to be weird on the straightforwardness of translating. Anyway, so this game, or as I'm calling it, the actual better version of "And You Thought There's Never a Girl Online," because it really is.
I liked that one.
I'm not saying I didn't like it, but I like this one better. Because it doesn't follow this psychotic girl who can't differentiate what happens in a video game from real life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that show.
To me, it's this interesting story of a 30-year-old. I don't know why they call her Neat anymore, because to me, like, Neat was always that, no education or
no education, employment, or training.
But it's like, I get that she's not currently under that stuff, but she seemed to hold down a pretty successful job that, she just, I guess, got burnt out by and just wanted a change of pace and started playing online games.
So my
is
whole
what it
question
seemed like to
with
me.
this is, how is that economically viable?
I know. She was either had a really good job, which it didn't
So
seem like she did, or...
It seems like she was overworked, so she probably had no time to spend any of her money. So now she has all this money saved up.
Maybe, but eventually you're gonna run out.
Yeah, they're not very clear in that dynamic, but...
It doesn't seem like she's spending it, like, on a lot of things. She's being very thrifty, if you see by how she dresses and where she goes to the shop.
And what she
Oh,
eats,
yeah.
and the trips to the convenience store. Yeah.
What-
So, to me, like I said, it's an improvement on that, because number one, the setting's not high school. Not that I have anything against high school anime, I really don't. But I like the angle that this one has spun.
Mhm.
And, she makes this male character who interacts with a female character who they drop obvious hints throughout the title, the identities of either of them. And it's just really interesting to see how the characters interact and just kind of like learn about the people and the events that are about to ensue as you know them. I'm just trying to be really roundabout about it, so we can come out and say all of what happens at the end of season discussion. But
I really like this one.
Mhm.
It has laugh out loud moments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh gosh, it's really funny. And Sean posted about her expressions.
Mhm.
That he's watching it just for her expressions, and boy, does she have some great ones.
That's actually and how they transition between the two, because you're getting into this very serious moment, then it cuts to her and she's like, oh my god. You feel that, you're like, oh snap, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's like really interesting how it pulls off those elements of gender bender, because like you're playing this like really anime-esque like 2D MMO that has these ultra realistic graphics when you're looking at the 2D screen. I know when they're animating it as like you're in that world and they're playing it, that's just so that they can tell the story without looking too rigid, but like whenever they take a moment and they're like looking at the characters' faces, it's like, man, we need games like that now.
Well,
But
as far as the gender offender thing, the whole reasoning behind it, I've only played a handful of MMOs, is basically whose butt do you want to be staring at for hours and hours on end?
and I know that it comes with its own sense of moralities, because like when I play a single player game, I'll make either or, but when I do MMOs, I always kind of make the first character my gender, because it's not that I want to be staring at something, but it's almost because I like having some grounded. It's not like anyone would be able to tell, but I mean, it's just what I do, right? It's almost my code that I've made for playing an online game. Not that it matters, not that it's policed, but
Yeah, right.
but I do like how it kind of goes into that mentality too, because an active part of the conversation amongst the whole guild is, as they're playing this game, they have a guild leader, and like the guild leader seemingly enforces like no relationships forming within the guild mates. I think that was said at one point, and even though they'll push people to pursue relationships in the real world, he doesn't want that like murking the relationships of people in the game. And how people, talk to each other, because unlike, and you thought there's never a girl online, where the protagonist in that was under the impression that anything that happened in the video game world absolutely was occurring in real life simultaneously, and like relationships and views expressed in the game reflected exact copies of the people. You do have that approach in here where certain players are being cautious about how much info they can ask of somebody into finding their identity or likewise. But I just, visually it's appealing, and I just like the cast of characters, and you would never get that in a high school story.
The only thing that bugged me about this show was it seemed to kind of show that she used to play MMO games beforehand, before
Yeah.
she started working. So when she started again, why is she like a total noob? Why can't she do a lot of would be basic stuff she's played before, or have games advanced that much?
I got you.
I
So,
think they've advanced that much because when she first started out, she had her old PC was really kind of janky, and then slowly throughout time it gets bigger and better, and she can play. Maybe.
Well, I think it's also like it's learning the aesthetics of the new style. I think sometimes, because a lot of games have different ways to do things. I remember playing this one a while back in the day where when you did your character design, it just kind of spat you out into this like blank room kind of a thing where all you could do is walk around, and then they randomly like did this almost jump scare scene, like they just flashed out of nowhere, and like the scripted scenario played out. But it's kind of like it. Various games implore different levels of impact, right? Like our game uniquely pulled this one thing off. So sometimes it's learning the interface that you have to kind of go through where, man, in this other game I could do this stuff, but this one doesn't allow that.
And even if the game updates too, or I was playing Lord of the Rings online, and I went away from it for a few months, and I came back, and they changed so much that I was back to square one because everything was in a different location.
The UI.
At least with the interface, yeah, it
Yeah.
was. So I can see someone being rather noobish.
I just got a comment a while ago saying about how she earns her money. Is that since
She's
it's
like
an
one of those Twitch
MMOR,
streamers. No,
she's
just
an
kidding.
MMOR player, so all I'm saying.
No, but to me, it's a really, really enjoyable show, and I would recommend it more so than a lot of other stuff.
Gold farming, I think that's what you said. Right there it is. Gold farming.
Oh, gold farming. Huh.
Maybe that's how she earns her money. Who knows?
Maybe. I'd be a lot happier if they gave an in-universe reason as to how this can happen, because that's always in the back of my mind watching this is how can you survive with no job?
And I get that. It's just me. What I get hung up on is calling her a NEET, because like, does NEET only apply to if you actually have no skills, or like if you were a top class programmer who doesn't need to be working anymore, are you truly NEET? Like you
So
could just re-enter that
really
field.
call her neat? Do they really call her neat?
Yeah.
She calls herself that. She says,
Yeah.
I'm an elite NEET,
Yeah.
is what she calls herself, because she actually chose the lifestyle.
Wouldn't the correct
as
term be like
opposed
a
to,
hikikomori, right?
I think so, personally.
because she
Although
says
she's not
stuff
really
about how
like,
going to the convenience store is hard for me.
yeah, like
So
it's
yeah, I
hard,
would
but
say that she's in
not.
that territory.
I don't think she's like it's not full blown hikikomori, like not wanting to leave the room. It's just would rather be in the house as much as possible, and beyond that, like going out is more of a hassle, but it's not, the worst thing ever.
She might be a level 1 hikikomori.
But I guess
Like, I
I
just
guess she
wondered
just
if it applied because it seems like she had a really good, like, because they even talk about that, like, because one guy is asking into, he doesn't realize like the real life self of her, right? And she seemed to like be really good at her job, and the one person, yeah, no, she really was. So it's like if you have no skills,
yeah, but I guess she just calls herself that because of the no employment. But I don't get how you'll be called ultra neat. But overall, it's good. It's fun. I don't know if it's kind of a recommendable show, but also kind of not. I think.
like, I
It's
don't think it's a gateway really, but I think if you're already an anime fan, there's not much to be upset with there, in my personal opinion.
yeah. This is definitely for anime fans, not MMORPG fans, because it doesn't really deal with any of that, even though it takes place there. But the only things I get confused are like, is she typing everything that's the dialogue's
Yeah,
going?
she
Like,
is.
how is she all of a sudden like, oops, I didn't mean to type that, or I was thinking that, but I typed it. I don't see how you do that. I've never done that.
You've never gotten emotionally invested in something as you're. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I'm reaching there.
So, but good show, good show, good show. What do we got next? Oh, what's this show about? I haven't even touched it.
Um,
Code Yes. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Code
Real life.
Realize. Code Realize. Does it have anything to do with Code Yes?
No, but you type
No.
in this code and you go away from anime eyes to like real life physical eyes.
It's an anime adaptation of an otome game, which I have actually played.
Ah,
Yeah.
how fun.
Mm-hmm. And one of the issues, or perhaps the main issue with adapting a otome game or a harem game, is that the protagonist is bland because in the game they're meant to be a stand-in for the player. And that's fine if you're a player, but if you're just a passive viewer, it gets pretty damn frustrating to watch the hero or the heroine just kind of float their way through all of these uh, story bits. And the reason why I thought Code Realize might be a decent adaptation is because the main character, Cardia, actually has a personality in the otome game. So she's not supposed to be a direct analog for the player. And you can also learn to fight in the game too. So you're not just a passive heroine having things happen around you, as you can affect the course of the game. I don't know if they're going to go that route with this particular anime, but I'm hoping that they do. They've already cut quite a bit of material from the show out of necessity, because the game is probably 20-hour game. But I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see how it ends, which love interest she goes with. My money would be on Lupin because he was the true ending character, but you can develop romances with every single other character in the game. So I don't know. I haven't seen enough to be able to recommend it or diss it yet.
My question would be is like with some of the other shows, um, is there anything for males to enjoy from this, or
I mean, I guess this is where you could have me step in because I'm kind of watching it, but at first, I'm not a huge fan of anything Lupin. I always liked Lupin the Third, but like whenever you do historical pieces with giving like your take on using these historical names, like they do that all the time with the Alice in Wonderland stuff. Like you just see that naming scheme used, but it doesn't really follow the source material any kind of properly at all. I think I'm only one episode in on it, but I intend to, when I get my list more refined, get caught up with it. I was interested in its story because, like I said, like one of my most enjoyments of anime is presenting this physics breaking thing. Because all I know from watching this, and I know Jessica's played it, is I think the heroine's father was like a mad scientist. Yes? No? Inventor, at least?
Yeah. He
And,
messed around with things.
and he made this like glyph-like unlimited power thing or something, to which he placed within his daughter, and that either triggered an ability in and of itself or powered an ability she already had. I don't know. I'm still figuring stuff out, and I don't know how fresh I have it in my memory, but it caused this character to emit like a universal poison, basically. Like herself is highly toxic, right? And she has specific clothing that is not affected by it and kind of keeps the rest of the world shut away. And I'm thinking that's like that attack mechanic you were talking about, because I wasn't thinking of that when I was watching this initially. But like I always like those physics breaking concepts of like making this thing do this other thing. Like I always enjoy anime for its fiction, and that element was here for me. I will admit I'm not usually much of a voice actor thing, but I had a curiosity because I did just come away basically from watching Yowamushi Pedal a season or two ago, and like the voice actor who did that green-haired Makishima character like did not try to change up his voice at all for this thing. Like that impy mechanic guy is straight up that green-haired character. I'm sorry if I put this image in your head, but like because I at first I heard him, I'm like, no, he used that exact voice really recently, and I had to do some digging. I couldn't just recall it, but when I saw the connection, I'm like, oh my god, it's that guy from Yowamushi Pedal.
Well, a lot of Otome games, at least the ones that get published in the US, are by Otomate and Idea Factory, and so they have the same pool of voice actors. So you can romance about the same 5 or 6 voice actors in every single game. And they translate over into the anime too. So the voice actors for all of the characters in the anime were the same ones in the game. Cardi is the only exception because being the protagonist, she didn't have a voiceover.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in it for, like I said, anime to me makes really interesting fiction. That's what I love from anime the most, and I don't believe we do that well enough with like English literature.
Yeah.
We don't have that market in place. I don't frequently read English books, I will admit, but to the extent that I see conventions happen, and at stuff like Comic-Con, like Harry Potter got real big. That wasn't, I'm just going off stuff based off a book, but like we don't really have a lot going for us as much as Japan seemingly exports, just coming up with that literature. And from my perspective, I just kind of take all that I can get, right? If anyone makes this world that has the slightest difference from reality, I'm interested in the story that they're willing to weave. Now, might not be the best story ever, but anything that expands my horizons of understanding fiction is kind of good. and that's just to me. Like so like if you don't have my views of you're not willing to watch a story just because of a really cool kind of quirk, then don't watch it.
As far as can it be enjoyable if you're a guy, I guess that really depends, because I can enjoy harems that are written for men with a male protagonist and a harem of hot chicks and stuff. I can enjoy that, but the bar is higher for me, is that it has to have something more to it than just the fact that a harem exists. And so if that's the way you feel about reverse harems, then you would probably be able to enjoy Code Realize, I almost said Code Geass, more than others in the same genre. But I would wait until I've seen the whole show before I recommend it to someone who's thinking about it, because it could get really crappy really fast.
Because
I
like,
gotcha.
wasn't there
Yeah.
a show kind of like Amnesia that came out that was a reverse harem that with the swoop
Oh,
color eyes?
there's the Sengoku Night Blood, which is a reverse harem out here, which I
Mhm.
dropped after one episode, and I would definitely not recommend that.
See, I
Because
haven't
I'm the
checked out
target
Beyond Blind.
audience, and I didn't like it. So
I honestly, I haven't. I'm not decidedly for watching it or dropped yet. I'm only episode 1 myself. I'm willing to give it another episode or two. What I'm interested in it is, again, it weaved a pretty fictional universe. That's all well and good, but like, it was always interesting because like normally when you drop someone into the past, because like it does one of those, like, we just inserted someone into a past yet fictional timeline, and instead of just straight up into the past. There's a clear amount of difference there, which okay, I'm following for, but like it's never from the perspective of of someone in such, not in a dire situation, but there's really not much this individual can like fend for themselves, because not only are they inserted into the Nobunaga-esque era, there's vampires and creatures of lore that are fighting that war in the place of normal people and guns, and she's a normal person. It's like it
God,
kind of
it's Twilight
escalates
all
that
over
story to
again.
me, because normally you give them their own way to combat. Like normally when you insert someone into that like alternate world kind of a timeline, like they at least get a weapon and take up arms and can fight with people on par with them. And I don't think that's what's going to happen here. So that's kind of like my early call. Perhaps I'll check out more.
mm-hmm.
All right, our next title, which honestly I think is going to be our last due to time, just so happens to be the Imoto Seiya Iraiba, or Ireba, E. I almost missed the E because it looks like an exclamation point here. Which translated into something weird on Crunchyroll. I can't remember what it was called. What was it called in Crunchyroll, Nick?
Um,
I'll pull it up, I guess. Well, I'll just say this.
a sister's all you need.
The sister's all you need. Okay, so um,
Um,
I started watching this. When it comes to emotos, it always reminds me of a good friend we have that he constantly made fun of for OreAni. And that's you, Nathan, if you're watching, which I don't think so. But I decided to watch a show, and first 5 minutes, I was horrified. I could not believe what was happening. Okay, spoilers, people. If you don't want to watch or listen to this, just go watch it and be freaked out yourself. But it's, oh my god! Just at first, I was like, okay, they're making fun of the typical little sister trope, maybe taking it a little far. But then as you went on and went on, it got even worse and worse and worse. And I was actually about to quit. I'm like, no way, this is just too ridiculous. How can you make a show like this? I'm stopping. I can't. And then all of a sudden you realize it was a book that was being written by someone. the so I was relieved with that, but then you find out who this guy really is and how damaged he is. Which then again, I'm sorry. I know he's nothing like this, but it just always makes me remind me of Nathan for some reason. So
It's okay. He's not in this side of anime talk anymore.
yeah, so just everything about him, his life, everything revolves around Emotos. And of course, he doesn't have an Emoto. He has a Ototo, right, the little brother, which
Mm.
oddly enough is very girlish, very girly, and takes care of him. Goes over to his house, cooks food for him, just serves all the friends and everything, which to the point which kind of like, is this supposed to be a trap or? But of course,
I think there's something going on there, but
yeah. So
I'm sure there is.
it's really strange about him. I try to ignore him because it's
so,
off-putting.
okay, really quick, just answer me this. Have you watched the most recent episode? Like, are you on?
No, because I think it came out earlier today, right?
Yeah, I already watched episode 3, so I was just wondering.
So I haven't seen that
Okay.
one. I just saw
All right.
episode 2.
I'll cut you some benefit of the doubt here then.
So you're introduced to a group of friends that are, I guess, are all light novel, and um, and they're all going through a few things in their life. A few are going to college. A few are just becoming just 100% novelist. And this novelist, I don't know what he actually writes. I kind of forgot, but he's just totally obsessed with Little Sisters.
That's what he writes about little sisters.
Really? I wonder what his actual book's about, because
It kind of like, I don't know the name of it, but like they're always like, in one of his classes, a college classmate of his read one of his stories, and they're like, I don't get it. Why does this guy get powers when he does this thing with his little sister? And like, so like the little sister's always the trigger point in all of his types of books, to which we find out that in this universe, right, in All You Need Is a Little Sister, that is kind of a trope of a story that people can super gimmick, basically. And it kind of spawned a line of authors, and it's kind of like, it almost earns as much as like as much as we call like something like a battle anime, like it becomes prominent enough to receive that own type of tag, like a trope that the little sister is a trigger for the story somehow, some way. Like it induces the supernatural power or whatever.
So I'm not 100% what this show is really going to be about. A lot of it seems to take place in this guy's room, and it has some stories going outside of it. But you do know that there's one girl that just totally infatuated with him. They
Yeah,
give you
like
some of her backing on why,
mm-hmm.
but it doesn't tell you everything, I believe, right now.
Nah.
So,
What
what were you gonna say?
were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna mention the
What
other
was I gonna
members,
say?
like his friend, or the girl, like you just mentioned, that was reading his book, which
Mhm.
eventually became a friend, just because she was curious about what he was always doing, and found out he was a novelist and kind of wanted to connect with him in some way. Also became a fan, and that she hangs around them. I don't know the story about the other guy, like how he fits in there, but he's
Mm-hmm.
also a novelist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's at least 3 novelists, and then the friend that's with him that tends to be the whole group, or at least from what I've seen. And I'm really interested in see where this is going, because it hasn't made any clear uh, point to it. Like,
Yeah, like I was on the fence as to whether this was original or based off something, and it does come sourced from a light novel, I have since found out, which answered a bunch of questions from me, because at first I thought this is something that Aniplex offered, because they were kind of parodying a lot of the titles in the episodes of this thing, and I just, looking into it, I'd come to find out that Silverlink has done this one. They adapted it from a light novel, because I was ultimately going to call this like Silverlink's version of Eromanga Sensei, because because it's kind of like what it's trying to be. It follows that cast of, although our main protagonist is out of high school, he is college level. He was taking college classes at one point. It kind of follows that vein of young authors who are really prominent in light novel sales side of society, and they kind of do things that authors do occasionally. While we haven't seen a lot of the show yet to really know what it, as you said, what its focus is going to be on, I did like seeing, light novelists kind of talk with that air of experience of like, we got to get this manuscript done, and how they converse with their editors, and just like, not that it keys you into that world a whole lot, but I just appreciate that angle being spun on characters occasionally, like who are into some level of production. And while this show is almost like a satire on Eromanga Sensei, in my not like my strong expressed opinion, I'm not basing that off a whole lot, because like it kind of borrows a lot of tropes from it, in my opinion. Whereas in Eromanga Sensei, they ultimately did write a story about the ultimate little sister. That's just kind of a story that the guy wrote. It wasn't necessarily his style. It just, was a story that he made. Whereas that is what our protagonist in this show is hell-bent upon. That is his muse, if you will. That is his literary style. Everything revolves around how he can use that little sister character and make the ultimate little sister. And I forget what her name was, the elf character from Eromanga Sensei, right?
No, can't remember.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just gonna Elf, I believe, is what they always called her anyway. Too much of last season's Symphogear is bleeding over to me because I want to call her Elf 9, but I know it wasn't Elf 9. Anyway, so that character introduced a little quirk in Eromanga Sensei where she involved writing while in the buff and had characters in her novel that did so, and our protagonist called her out on that, like, your book only sells because you include that stuff in your book, and it's a cheap tactic, basically. She's like, hey, it makes sales, I'm successful because of that. And you almost, like, you don't have a character who includes that in her style, but you almost have like the spitting image of that in that silver-haired character, God, what's her name? Nayuta, I guess? I forget what they call her, if it's the Kani, or if they go by her first or last name or some other nickname that they came up with. But, I mean, I don't think it's like actually trying to be a satire in Eromanga, but that's absolutely what I want to call it, because that just seems to be what it's doing, in my personal opinion. Even though it's based off a light novel and it's not original to the studio, it's still what I feel.
What about you, Ace? What do you think of this show?
Well, I be honest, I actually haven't even watched it so far. I was, yeah.
Well, you're in for a surprise with episode 1.
I'm sure I am.
So,
yeah, because like, kind of like how that one show we talked about earlier, the Sono Bitch one, they use that innuendistic form of sitcom, and in this particular show, you have one character and one character alone who it's not innuendistic. She straight up is making avid hits on the protagonist of the show, like, with, even if she's alone with him or not, and they're just using it in a comedic angle. But it's so weird to see a character that bent on pursuit of getting with the main character to, like, her dialogue, if you will, is what's interesting, because you never know what she's going to say next, and it's always like, since it doesn't happen, like, normally it's not a conversation you ever hear amongst friends, like with her being there. So I think it's almost that like culture shock factor, but I don't even think that's normal in Japan. She just exists for sheer culture shock.
So the thing that did surprise me was the fan service of this show. Um, I wasn't expecting too much from it. Maybe your typical tropey type, but um, it actually went a lot further, especially with her having to write her novels in the nude, and she always had her in
Again, Anno
frame.
Manga did it first.
And then also, um, I think that might kill it for some people if the first 5 minutes didn't. Uh, but for some reason, that just seemed really off for me. Like, why did they have to do it that way? And but I'm just the focus of the show is the biggest thing that's driving me. Like, I get the title, I get because of him, but where? I mean, it can't just be them having a slice of life, them just trying to write this one little story the whole time. What's really going to happen? Is there going to be some kind of huge conflict that happens? And especially with that silver-haired girl, whatever her name was, there's stuff that's happening in her life that I think will eventually spill in. So it does at least give you something to kind of look forward to see, like, at least something, something's going to happen.
Okay, dude, I'm going to like put all my cards on this table right now. What they're foreshadowing is like everyone saying all this character needs is that little sister character. And I forget if it was at the end of episode 2 or 3. This is not like a truly big spoiler here, but they show the younger brother character in this bath scene that kind of leads us to believe that that younger brother's probably not actually a younger brother. So I think like a big gimmick of the show is, and this is just me calling some shots here, but it seems like the obvious plot twist, now it might not go this way, I understand, is the younger brother character at some point is going to be actually revealed to be a younger sister, and we're going to have to see how the main character, who we all know his personality laid out on the table here, does he enact upon it? Does he hold himself? Like, how does... Because sometimes you got to think, is he acting that way because like they always say, you want what you can't have, right? Like that's it's only a wish because it's something unattainable. So like, are you acting out on that just because it's unattainable? And even if it's your heart desire, like how much did your personality build on that? And like when the plot twist happens, and in my opinion here, that everyone finds out that, oh no, he actually, younger brother's not actually a younger brother. Somehow, some way, I don't know how you'd, again, go all that time now. Maybe they're, I don't know if they're step siblings or not. Like, that wasn't made immediately clear. Because it was kind of weird how the brother visits, like, the one brother, as you said, to serve, and then, like, I guess go back home. But that seems to be the obvious gimmick of this, like, satire-esque show, is the younger brother won't be a brother.
Yeah.
Maybe. As long as it doesn't go Himigoto. That bathroom. That was terrible. So, but the only thing I have to say that I also loved about this show was the Nyan Pasu. Oh,
he was like sleeping
Nyan
or
Pasu
something.
was brought back.
See, to me, that's tasteful Nyanpasu, because it wasn't used as the catchphrase of the character. They were sleeping and mumbling it. Okay, fine, I can accept that, but Nonyon Biori can go to heck for all I care.
Albert, just skip the first 5 minutes and then watch the show so you can hear the Nyan Pasu. Actually, I kind of wish to watch a reaction video on Albert, maybe watching the first 5 minutes and maybe Sean, seeing what they think this garbage of the first 5 minutes is. Okay. Well, I believe that'll be it for today. We still got next week. Hopefully the others will join us. I know they've been going through a lot. There's a lot going on. We still got a few fun titles like Anime Gatari's Blended S is another that is going to be fun. You also have a lot of second seasons coming out. that we probably cover, like Hozoki Reitetsu. Uh, I was actually very interested in seeing if anyone watched Kino no Tabi, so hopefully someone will watch that next week. Kekai Ken, Battle Bloodfront, whatever you want to call that. So there's still a lot of titles out there that we could talk about next week. So hopefully we get to that. And is anyone watching Wake Up Girls? I forgot, was that good or not?
Yeah, I am.
I'm watching it, but I'm under the premise that because they're like on movie 3 or something by now. And Wake Up Girls was that one that started with a televised movie. So you watch the televised movie and then the TV series started up. So it's like, I'm not sure how movies 2 and 3 go into the season 2 because I haven't watched those because I've been behind.
So, hopefully we'll have Two-Car next week as well with Albert.
Mhm.
I remember him saying it was total junk, maybe. Maybe it's changed. I don't know. UQ Holders, another one that I was trying to catch up on but didn't get to. Shoujo Shumatsu, I really want to talk about that as well.
Mhm.
Shokugeki no Shoma. So there's a lot of still really good titles out there that we can get next week. So join us and we'll get through some of those. And I guess that's it for today. Bye, bye, our viewer.
Bye.
And